Now, aid organisations are warning that famine is looming in Sudan as the civil war between the army and the paramilitary rapid support forces continues. Millions of people have been displaced since the conflict broke out just over a year ago. According to the United Nations, more than 3.6 million children in Sudan are currently acutely malnourished. And one of the agencies that has raised the alarm in Sudan is the International Rescue Committee. And Shashwat Saraf is the East Africa Regional Emergency Director for the IRC. And he joins us now to talk more about the situation there. Welcome to DW. Thanks so much for your time today. Could you describe for us, please, the situation in Sudan right now? What are people having to cope with?
I think we need to understand that in Sudan today, we have more than 9 million people who are displaced. There are close to 7.1 million people who are displaced internally within Sudan. And there are about 2 million people who have had to seek refuge in neighboring countries such as Chad, South Sudan, Ethiopia, or Egypt. Other than the displacement crisis that you did mention, I think it's very important for us to recognize and realize that there are more than 18 million people who are extremely food insecure today. And it's very, very vital that people have access to food and can afford food, because today there's a problem of both accessibility but also affordability of food for people who are impacted because of the ongoing crisis.
If we could just talk about the armed power struggle and its effect on the situation. It's been going on for 18 months. What has happened recently to bring this situation to such a critical point?
So there are a few things. One, I think just the time frame since the start of the conflict in April last year, it has continued for so long that the capacity of people and populations to cope with has eroded. That's one. Two is that when we talk about displacement, we often feel that it's a one-time displacement. But for millions of people within Sudan, what we are witnessing is multiple displacements that are happening for people. People have had to move from Khartoum to Al Jazeera, from Al Jazeera to Gedaref to Kassala. So there is a constant movement, and people are not able to stay in one place to be able to practice their livelihoods or to be able to afford food for themselves. The third thing is that there is a massive food deficit today in Sudan because of the shortfall of local food production. We've seen that sorghum, which used to be produced in pockets like Al Jazeera, are currently not accessible for people. So there is a massive food deficit with internal production, but also there's a disruption in import of food grains. And also there is a problem with accessing populations in need in places such as the Greater Kordofan, the larger Darfur area, but also in Khartoum and in Al Jazeera states, which even deprives the population of access to humanitarian assistance.
Now, what can international agencies do? I mean, given the fact that people are moving around, having to move around so much, there's not enough food, it's so difficult to access. What is it that international agencies can do to try to help and to, in some way, try to prevent this level of starvation?
So first and foremost, I think it's very important that all barriers to humanitarian assistance are removed. It's very vital that whether it's cross-line operations or whether it's cross-border response into Sudan, all avenues are explored and all avenues are open for humanitarian assistance so that international organizations, along with their local partners and partner organizations, can reach populations that are difficult to reach today because of the multiple barriers that exist within Sudan. Secondly, I think it's very important to continue to support local responders. We've seen the role that mutual aid groups have played in Khartoum, but also in many other parts of Sudan. So it's vital that the support to local civil society and mutual aid groups is further strengthened, rather than reducing it because of concerns of risk. The third thing is we do need to make sure that we are able to adopt and scale proven solutions that exist for treatment of malnutrition. For the millions of children that you've talked about are severely malnourished today in Sudan. I also believe that in many parts of Sudan, we could actually push for a cash first approach. We've already seen barriers to moving in kind products such as food. So, how can we make sure that the markets are supported so that and people have access to cash and cash can be made available for the markets to be able to fulfill the need that is required for people, not only for food, but for other vital needs as well.
Shashwat Saraf, I'm afraid we're going to have to leave it there, but I'd like to thank you so much for your time. Shashwat Saraf from the International Rescue Committee.
Thank you.